wonderful friends, and welcome back to another video. This video comes after quite a lot of you have requested it, and also I put a post up on Instagram about my new leg strap. Lots of you had some kind of questions about how I got it and all of that kind of thing. I'm going to be addressing different funding options for wheelchairs in the UK. I am also going to be addressing the pros and cons of getting a NHS wheelchair and buying a wheelchair privately, as this was one of the major questions that came up. First of all, no, I haven't got a new wheelchair. This is my upstairs wheelchair that you may recognise. It's my rigid framed wheelchair that has been featured in many videos, and it's also Sean's stunt wheelchair. But it is now the wheelchair that I use for the Baytech. So it's got the Baytech docking bar on, and I put the orange push rims on, and it is sporting a new leg strap that I got through the NHS. The reason this wheelchair is out is because I'm going to be using it as a case study and example in this video, so keep watching. Now, I have done my best to be as accurate as possible with this video. However, please do your research, because a lot of things are dependent on your condition, they are dependent on your postcode, and I'm very sorry about this. I don't make up the rules, but that is the way it is in the UK. But all of the information that I have supplied is as best as I can do it. It's also based on my own personal experiences. So the first thing that I'm going to address are the different funding options that you could potentially use in the UK. So the first route that you could go down is the NHS route. Speak to your doctor, your occupational therapist, and then eventually you will be referred to wheelchair services. This is how it worked for me. Might be different for you. They'll take a look at you and they'll see what your needs are, and they will work out what chair you may need. Another option that you may wish to look at is the NHS Voucher Scheme. Now, this is a scheme that is not available to everybody. It is based on your needs, which I will talk about these in a little bit more detail in the video. Another really good option is access to work. So if you are working or you're self-employed, you may be eligible for access to work. For example, if you need to get to work and the only way for you to get to work is for you to have a lightweight wheelchair, then they may offer you some funding towards that wheelchair. If I needed a smart drive for my wheelchair to help me on the shop floor, for example, when I used to work, and it will enable me to do my job more effectively, access to work may help with funding for that. If you are self-employed, you need to be earning a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time, so I don't qualify, unfortunately. As long as you are in employment, you may be eligible for access to work, so give that a Google because it is a great option. Another option that you may want to look at is charities. So depending on your condition, for example, I have a spinal cord injury, I could look up charities dedicated to spinal cord injuries, and they may help me fund a wheelchair. I have had reports of people who've had brittle bone disease, and they have worked closely with a charity who help people with brittle bones, and they have been able to help raise money for that person to access the medical equipment that they require. Another option you may want to look at is personal crowdfunding or GoFundMe pages, where you can log on, you can put up what you are aiming to raise money for, why you need that equipment, and then people can give you donations to buy your wheelchair. I have heard some amazingly successful stories. I have a friend who needed to fund a wheelchair and an electric add-on to their chair, and they were able to raise the full amount that they needed for their life-changing mobility equipment, because it don't come cheap. Another option that you may want to look at, and it is completely at your own discretion and your own circumstances, is payment plans. RGK, for example, they do have payment plan options that you could potentially look into. So now I'm going to address the benefits of having an NHS wheelchair and having a voucher funded wheelchair. This was a question that was asked over on the community tab, and lots of people were interested in it, so I thought it would be a great idea to go ahead and dive into it. This is from my perspective. It might be different for other people, and I'm going to base it on my own experiences. So here we go. The benefits of having an NHS wheelchair, if you are entitled to one, is that you don't have to pay a thing. As far as I'm aware, you don't have to pay a thing. You don't have to worry about maintenance, and any adjustments that need doing, someone can either come out to your house and adjust it for you, and the add-ons such as the cushions, leg straps and upholstery and things like that are all included. However, potential downsides to having an NHS wheelchair are that they might not be that adequate for your needs. NHS wheelchairs tend to be quite heavy and quite bulky. From my experience, they offered me a quickie, I think, and it was just too heavy for me to handle, too hard to handle. Another thing is that yes, they will measure you. However, you must be aware that I have heard reports that people have had mistakes made. Then getting those mistakes rectified can take months, maybe even years, who knows. Another thing also to consider is, depending on the area that you live in, is the waiting list and the wait time. This again may be subject to your condition, but something to bear in mind. So the next option is the NHS Voucher Scheme. Now, this all is dependent on your condition and your needs. I'm doing my best, please don't come for me. What I will do is I will open up and I will tell you exactly what I was offered. This is based on my needs and also my area, because some areas are different. So when I went to the NHS to get measured for a wheelchair, they said, here you go, this is what we would prescribe you, it's a quickie. And for me, it didn't meet my needs, it was too heavy and too bulky. So I said, no, sorry, that wheelchair is not going to work for me. Then they will say, okay, Jem, so they will give me a voucher for £1,000. And then I can go to a wheelchair retailer who has to accept the vouchers, because some don't, so always check. So I can go to them and say, I've got this voucher for £1,000, this is my budget. And then what I can do is I can use that voucher against the cost of the chair. Now the voucher is dependent upon your condition. So for someone who may be an ambulatory wheelchair user, who has been offered a wheelchair based on their needs, it may only be £600. Complete example here, maybe even less than that. It may be more than that. So this chair, this Da Vinci chair, was £2,000. I was able to pay half of that with the voucher, and the other half I was able to pay for access to work. So that is how I funded this chair. Now the benefits of the voucher are that you can go privately, so there aren't the waiting times that maybe the NHS would have. Your occupational therapist will pass your details over to you so you can show them exactly all of your measurements and everything. Bear in mind that they can go wrong, it's not always guaranteed, so there are costly mistakes that can be made. And I've got videos on that, so you can go and check those out. Another great benefit is that there is a huge selection of chairs that you can choose from depending on your budget. So you could get an ultra lightweight wheelchair, or you could get sort of a middle of the range to bottom of the range wheelchair and use the voucher against that. As I said, there is the possibility that you could make costly mistakes when purchasing one of a wheelchair privately. It might not be measured correctly, you might choose things that aren't quite right for you, but they should look at all of the occupational therapist's notes and advise you the best they can. You are also responsible for the maintenance of your wheelchair and the upkeep of your wheelchair. So when I had to swap my caster wheels over, Sean didn't actually have the tool he needed to take a certain nut off. So we had to take it to a bike shop, and then the bike shop were like, hey, we don't want to touch this. But we made them. I don't know about different areas, but I have been very fortunate that they have supplied me with an NHS cushion. I don't know if that is because of my spinal cord injury. I don't know if that would be different to someone else's condition, but I haven't had to pay for any of my cushions, and I've got some pretty good cushions. I've got a nice J cushion here and a Supracor cushion here, which I love. And then also my leg strap. I needed a leg strap because I've been using this on the Voucher, so my feet have been falling off, which is quite dangerous, but they were able to issue me with a leg strap. Now when I emailed them, they said, oh, because you bought your chair privately, then we can't supply you with a leg strap. But then I did argue my point that I did use the voucher to fund for it. So I don't know whether it was because I voucher funded for it or not that I got the leg strap. But it's always worth asking, because if you don't ask, you don't get. So my wonderful friends, I really hope that this video has been of use to you, and please make sure that you do your research. And one of the key things that quite a lot of us wheelchair users would suggest is to always speak to an occupational therapist first, and someone who knows what they're doing. If you've got anything to add, please feel free to drop it down below. Let me know how you funded your chair. Let me know your success stories, maybe your not so successful stories. If you like this video, then you may enjoy extra costs being disabled. So go and check that out. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!